uh, 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 oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, come on. So real. So real. Grazing in the grass, it's a gas. Grazing in the grass, it's a gas. Feels so good. Feels so good. Grazing in the grass, it's a gas. Grazing in the grass, it's a gas. Yeah. Everything here is so clear, you can see it. Everything here is so near, you can feel it. It's real, so real, yeah.
Today we are talking about Portuguese and why it sounds so different from the other Romance languages. The story of Portuguese begins in the Kingdom of Galicia in the Middle Ages, where language was seen as an expression of art. Any news you want to share?
Siblings, can you turn the TV to a news channel?
For now, we're simply asking for cooperation while authorities assess the object.
So you're saying it's not ours? Do you even know if it's from Earth?
We're still collecting information. We're coordinating with other countries. We are not the only ones to have one of these in our backyard.
If this is some sort of peaceful first contact, why send 12? Why not just one?
Yeah, I know. I saw that too. Uh-huh. Sorry, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Language is the foundation of civilization. It is the glue that holds the people together.
That far, that far, that far, that far, that far. Trigger. Colombia. She only been here for 2 weeks. Came with the girls and they tryna leave with me. She working hard like she tryna get a visa. The way she twerk it, I just might pull out my visa.
She saw his mouth move, but she shut out the sound of his voice. She did not want to listen. She did not want to answer. She heard him raise his voice, a hint of irritation at her failure to respond. He talked about mutual trust. After a few minutes he stopped. She ignored his gaze. Then he shrugged and began adjusting her leather straps. He tightened the harness across her chest a bit and leaned over her. She twisted suddenly to the left, away from him, as abruptly as she could and as far as the straps would allow. She pulled up her knees to her chin and kicked hard at his head. She aimed at his Adam's apple, and the tip of her toe hit him somewhere below his jaw, but he was ready for that and turned away, so it was only a light blow. She tried to kick again, but he was out of reach. She let her legs sink back down onto the bed. The sheet slid down onto the floor. Her nightdress had slid up above her hips. He stood still for a long time without saying a word. Then he walked around the bed and tightened the foot restraint. She tried to pull her legs up, but he grabbed hold of one ankle, forced her knee down with his other hand, and fastened her foot with a leather strap. He went around the bed and tied down her other foot. Now she was utterly helpless. He picked up the sheet from the floor and covered her. He watched her in silence for 2 minutes. She could sense his excitement in the dark, even though he did not show it. He undoubtedly had an erection. She knew that he would reach out and touch her. Then he turned and left, closing the door behind him. She heard him bolt it, which was totally unnecessary, because she had no way of getting free from the bed. She lay for several minutes, looking at the narrow strip of light over the door. Then she moved and tried to feel how tight the straps were. She could pull her knees up a bit, but the harness and the foot restraints grew taut immediately. She relaxed. She lay still, staring at nothing. She waited. She thought about a gasoline can and a match. She saw him drenched with gasoline. She could actually feel the box of matches in her hand. She shook it. It rattled. She opened the box and selected a match. She heard him say something, but she shut her ears, did not listen to the words. She saw the expression on his face as she moved the match towards the striking surface. She heard the scraping sound of sulphur. It sounded like a drawn-out thunderclap. She saw the match burst into flame. She smiled a hard smile and steeled herself. It was her 13th birthday. Mikael Blomqvist rang the doorbell of Salander's apartment on Lundegarten. He did not expect her to open the door, but he had fallen into the habit of calling at her apartment every week or so to see whether anything had changed. He lifted the flap on the mailbox and could see the same heap of junk mail. It was late, and too dark to make out how much the pile might have grown since his last visit. He stood on the landing for a moment before turning on his heel in frustration. He strolled leisurely to his own apartment on Bellmansgarten, put on some coffee, and looked through the evening papers before the late TV news rapport came on. He was irritated and depressed not to know where Salander was. He felt stirrings of unease and wondered for the 1000th time what had happened. He had invited Salander to his cabin in Sandhamn for the Christmas holidays. They had gone for long walks and calmly discussed the repercussions of the dramatic events in which they had both been involved over the past year, when Blomqvist went through what he came to think of as an early midlife crisis. He had been convicted of libel and spent 2 months in prison. His professional career as a journalist had been in the gutter, and he had resigned from his position as publisher of the magazine Millennium, more or less in disgrace. But at that point everything had turned around. A commission to write a biography of the industrialist Henrik Wanger, which he had regarded as an absurdly well-paid form of therapy, had turned into a terrifying hunt for a serial killer. During this manhunt, he had met Salander. Blomqvist unconsciously stroked the faint scar that the noose had left beneath his left eye. Salander had not only helped him to track down the killer, she had saved his life. Time and again, she had amazed him with her odd talent. She had a photographic memory and phenomenal computer skills. Blomqvist considered himself virtually computer illiterate, but Salander...
White girl, you drives me crazy.